Welcome to the Horror Friendly Podcast.
It's not over because that bitch is dead.
Let's delve into that a bit deeper.
I'm going to be like the peacekeeper between you two tonight.
Don't fuck with the original.
Yeah, don't fuck with the original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Horror Friendly Podcast, part of the You Run Podcast Network. My name is Katie, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Chantel. Hi, Chantel.
Hi.
So we're going to be doing something a little different for you guys for the next month or so. We've decided to do a little mini-series covering some of the incredible films showcased at the UK Film Festival FrightFest. We're so excited to introduce you to these films and give you a bit of insight, our insight. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy.
Okay, so the next one we're going to be looking at is called Fright, directed by Warren Dudley. In 1937, young Emily is trapped in a nightmare. Chronic agoraphobia and a strange domineering mother have turned their sprawling Gothic mansion into a prison. On the brink of madness, Emily is haunted by lurking malevolent forces. Her only hope, the desperate belief her missing father could save her from this living hell. But as she longs for his return, Emily is tormented by visions of a sinister, gnarled black hand, a spectre haunting her earliest memories. It is a homage to the unsettling atmosphere of 1950s horror cinema, echoing the terror of the haunting and the ghostly dread of the innocents. What did you make of this one?
Very different. So
Right?
different to anything that we've covered so far.
Yeah.
I know I just said scopophobia was, but this was like on another level. I think I just really appreciate it for the uniqueness and the just how different this film was.
Yeah.
Obviously very heavily influenced by like 1960s cinema and horror. Really cool throwback to sort of like the silver screen times. And yeah, I thought it was actually a really clever film and done really well. And I enjoyed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. What about you?
So again, as you said, I think it's so funny how when we grouped some of these together, we didn't even deliberately think about, like, as you say, like, oh, that's such an interesting idea to have like scopophobia and then agoraphobia in the same category. And then last week we had an Irish film and a Swedish film. And again, we didn't actually plan it that way. It's just how it's happened. But again, like agoraphobia is a really interesting concept because it does kind of put you into a house and then you kind of have the cabin fever aspects. I was getting, though, massive Baby Jane vibes from this, whatever happened to Baby Jane, and also a bit the Babadook.
Same.
Yeah.
Baby Jane, that's really interesting. What was that about with Baby Jane?
So I think it was partly because, well, when it was in black and white, but also, so again, it was kind of a bit that era, but also the fact that one of the characters couldn't or wouldn't leave the house. So again, that kind of brings around that aspect of them having to rely on someone else. Yeah, and just kind of like making them incredibly vulnerable, because if their carer isn't about, what does that look like for them? What's that situation? They're putting a lot of trust into that person. So I was getting very, Baby Jane vibes from it.
Yeah, cool.
Which is a very recent cover for us as well. So
yeah, exactly. Listen to that, guys. Shameless promo there.
I know, just drop it in. But I did love the way they kind of showed that and showed her agoraphobia as it was this really, like, it really hindered her, but at the same time she was walking around. I love the like narrative when she's writing in her diary and she's just like, oh, I'm bored, but she couldn't, but it didn't matter if she was bored, she'd try and leave and physically couldn't. So I thought that was a really interesting take on it, where you would think, you know, if she was bored, she'd want to go outside, and then she was stuck in her own. And she even said, like, I know it's in my head, I know it's a fear, but I can't do anything about it. And I just thought it was a really powerful look at it.
Yeah, that's so true. And Babadook vibes, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like the storybook sort of vibe of it, I felt was very Babadook. And I think just the general atmosphere and the sort of eerie atmosphere of the film reminded me of the Babadook as well. It was sort of always like you were kind of waiting for a jump scare, or you were waiting for something really terrifying to happen. I felt very uneasy as I was watching it. I felt like I was really just waiting for something.
I think at points as well, like again, similar to Babadook, where there's hints of that, like this other character that only that person can see. So as you say, like once like there was the hand was mistaken for a tree branch. So at that point you're like, oh, we are actually building up to something is going to come, and so you are like building up that tension and just waiting. And I did think it was interesting as well how she'd keep asking questions about her father, and she just wasn't getting any information, so she wasn't able to figure anything out or expand anything, and she only had her mother to try and help. So again, I just thought that was a really interesting premise, that if you've only got one person to ask questions to and they're not giving you anything, how do you learn?
Yeah, that's so true. You're just kind of literally trusting what they're saying. That's all you can really do, which is quite scary, really, because you're really just dependent on that one person.
It was interesting when she was like, I love you and I hate you. Like she had such opposite feelings for this person because they were her savior and her captor at the same time. But it wasn't even their fault. So I just thought that was, again, like a really interesting play on human mentality.
Yeah, it was really cool. I really like the cinematography as well, just in general. Like, I think the sound was really good. The soundtrack especially, I think, was really effective, because as well, it was there was sort of one premise and they were just kind of running with that. Obviously, there's a few twists and turns along the way, but in general, it kind of stays at one pace. So I think the sound was really important for a film like this, and I think it didn't disappoint. I thought it was, again, very heavily influenced by that kind of like silver screen kind of very Baby Jane kind of soundtrack. But and also the lighting, I think like you kind of just had an overwhelming like sense of dread all the time. There was always like lots of shadows around, and I think it was very visually very beautiful.
There was, to be fair, like you say, like the use of the shadows, and there was like a shot of her coming down the stairs. I think she had a candle, and again, I was like, I could tell you like 5 films that shot's used in, and it's again not like a negative. You could just see the influence. And there was another point, I think she was coming down like a hallway, and there was so many shadows. And as you say, you're like, you're just watching everything to be like, where's the jump scare coming from? What's about to happen? Like, I thought it was really clever how they used the shadows as like something bad.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, the stairs, it's funny that you mentioned the stairs bit when she walks down, because to me that really reminds me of like the Nosferatu, when you see hit like Count Orlok like going down the stairs. Like it was really reminding me of like that kind of influence. So for a horror fan, this is like this is your ideal kind of like a classic horror fan. I think they'll be all over this.
If you recommend this to a classic horror fan, it's a classic horror fan film. But even like the opening is in such classic way, like the titles. Actually, I think there was a doll in the titles and I was like, Baby Jane, and it was like straight away, I think I was just straight away I was put there, and I was like, cool, that's what this film's influenced by immediately. So absolutely a classic horrors. Perfect film.
Absolutely. I think we've answered our own questions, Hal. Like, I think if you like Universal Monsters, Dracula, which we've also covered, I think you're going to like this film if you're into that kind of thing. And I just thought it was really clever and really different. And I think props to the director for just putting himself out there and just doing something completely different, because as a horror fan, I think that's great.
And it's funny because it's like something so different, but that actually we've seen before. But done in a, not necessarily in a new way, but in a fresh way. I think. And again, I loved the way of storytelling through, like, again, 2 people in a house, how much story can you tell? And like the way they found to do that through like letters and diary keeping, I thought was really clever.
Like, given that the majority of the film was just 2 people, it must have been quite challenging to keep that like excitement and tension building when there's only 2, as you say. So the fact that they managed to do that, I think like the acting, I think, has a lot to do with that, because that was excellent, I think. And also, just like everything around it, like the lighting and the cinematography, I think really helped that, because that must have been a challenge to like keep it tense when you've got quite a limited cast.
Yeah, no, for sure. So do you have a wow moment?
Wow moment. Throwing me off. There were so many. I was really kind of like wowed by the film in general. I am going to say though, I think just the use of lighting, I think, was really, really cool and really effective, and it actually kept me engaged throughout the film. I thought it was really kind of like, it was really well done, and it really kind of gave off such a spooky atmosphere. So I'm going to say just the general look of the film, I think, is my wow moment. What about you?
See, annoyingly, I said at the beginning, and I just said it again, forgetting this question was coming, but the narrative and like the storytelling through different means of just dialogue. So I thought that was, before I repeat myself, I literally was like, oh damn, I just said this, but that is my wow moment.
Yeah,
is how they told the story. So for the third time, that was the best.
Also, I think like the illustrations, I think also could have been a wow moment. I think, as you say as well, like that kind of separated it a little bit as well. Which I really liked.
To be fair, we'll also give a shout out to Gwyneth Evans and Jill Priest, because their acting was fucking fantastic. Again, trying to act off one other person which we have seen a lot recently, and people are smashing it, but it is hard. So I think that they're doing fucking brilliantly. What would you give this out of 5?
I'm going to give this 3.5 spookies out of 5. I thought it was really, really good, really clever. Loved the look of it. As it was, I kind of feel like the same way with you with Scopophobia. I think it's just nicely kind of put there. I don't think there's necessarily anything I'd change. I wouldn't necessarily rush back to it, but I would definitely give it another go. I think this kind of film would really suit Halloween night, lights off, candles, like pumpkin carving, like that kind of vibe. But I really enjoyed it. I just think, solid 3.5 for me. What about you?
So I was actually going to say the same, and I was like, not only have I said the same as you and the same as my last score, but I think it is just a nice, comfortable 3.5. Again, it's not, because it's kind of taken a lot of influence from older films, it isn't going to be the scariest film, because they tend to focus more on, like, human nature or real life things. Sorry. as opposed to relying on like big jump scares or really scary things. But so I think it's the sort of film that will, stay with you, and you will want to come back to, just not immediately. But no, I think
for sure.
Good. All right. Well, we will tag Warren Dudley, and you can follow him on Instagram to see any more updates on when this will be out for your viewing pleasure.
One thing to also add is I believe Scopophobia and Fright have Instagram accounts, so we'll link them on this video as well, and obviously on our Instagram, so you guys know where to go for all the latest updates. And as Tel says as well, also the directors, but they also do have film Instagram accounts, so it may be worth following them if you're interested.